Okay. Learning cycle. Because many scientists and educators, they try to find out how learning is made, and then they finally made this learning cycle. So human being go through this learning cycle, then they develop knowledge. And in other words, when you go through this learning cycle, your students automatically produce knowledge. So when you have your science lesson, you based on this learning cycle, you need to develop your science lesson. Okay, and especially in National Science Education um, Association, they emphasize 5 E's. So when you have these 5 E's, then that means you go through learning cycles, and further your students gonna learn based on your science lesson. Okay, so let's see 5 E's. It looks like this. Um, your students at the beginning curious about something, and then they want to find out the answer, right? So it's called engagement. And then once they have engagement, then they're gonna automatically try to find out something. So they explore, and after the exploration, they found something. So they discuss and um, share ideas. So it's called explanation. And then if their finding is right or not, they want to see, right? So uh, during elaboration, they apply what they just found. Okay, then they can firmly construct learning. So when you go through these, then they gonna develop knowledge, and then each of these steps need to be evaluated. Then your students gonna make sure each step, and then they gonna make knowledge firmly. Okay, so it's called the 5 E's. um, when you go through these 5 E's, then your students gonna have learning. Okay, and of course, uh, this is the process for knowledge. In other words, when you go through this step, then automatically you can make your class inquiry based. Okay, so this is very important step. We are gonna talk about this step again next class. So if you wanna make your classroom more inquiry based, you go through this because this is the process for producing knowledge, and this is the whole process for inquiry, because it starts with the curiosity and they look for answers, so have an exploration. After that, they get together, um, discuss what they found, and based on their finding, they're gonna have another chance to apply. That's elaboration. So when they go through elaboration, they're gonna make the product firmly. Okay, and then each these step need to be evaluated. So you can see students uh, have fully um, engaged each steps. Okay, and another component you need to think about to make your class inquiry based is questioning. um, think about our first activity. I made 6 questions and you answer to that questions, right? So when you prepare questions in advance, then it can be a good guidance for your students to inquire. Okay, there are many ways to make questions, but I want you to think about Bloom's taxonomy. Remember Bloom's taxonomy? This is Bloom's taxonomy for thinking. Another words, taxonomy, Bloom's taxonomy is thinking level. So think about your students' thinking level, and then prepare your questions according to the thinking level. Okay, the bottom thinking level is knowledge, and then comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and last level is evaluation. So evaluation is the highest level of thinking. Um, Knowledge level is just for recalling, right? So what is this? Like I ask you at the beginning, what is this anymore? So based on your past knowledge, you recall it and find out what that animal name is. So it's called knowledge level. For comprehension, you need to think about through your questions, your students need to understand. Your students need to show their understandings. So I made this question. Describe this animal in your own words. So when your students answer to this question, then you will know how much your students understand. Okay, so comprehension level, you need to think about how much your students understand this. Okay, so make a question for their understanding. Application level is to use knowledge in new situations. So um, I asked, where else can you find this animal? Because to describe llama, you must look for many information sites, right? So I want to know if you can apply your findings. So I ask, where else can you find llama? I ask you that question. That's for apply. Okay. And then analysis, breaking things down, critical thinking. So remember, I asked you, what is the difference? I mean, how is a llama different from camel? Remember? So I want you to break down um, llama's information. Okay, so I want you to analyze llama by asking how is different from camel. Okay, so that's for your analysis. And synthesis is putting things together for creative thinking. So I ask you, how can you design a house for llama? So when you have this question, you're gonna put together all the information about llama and then create a house for llama. So that question is for synthesis. And then the last two question was, is it good or bad to give a sausage to llama? Um, so you can evaluate uh, your knowledge based on my question. Okay, so is it good or bad? Something like that. You can make a judgment based on all these information. Okay, so when you develop questions, think about your students' thinking level. Okay, and then also you need to think about Vygotsky's zone of proximal development. Zone of proximal development is this. Of course, you already know about this, right? Your learner um, has some level, right? Uh, this level is your students' actual development level. And then your students can go over this potential development level. Okay, so there's current level and then potential level. So between the distance between this current development level and this potential development level, this distance we call zone of proximal development, right? And by your guide, teacher's guide, or parents, or some peers, with their scaffolding, with their guidance, the students can go over to this potential development level, right? So when you understand students' current level and their potential level, then you can prepare some questions uh, between this level. When you have that questions as a guidance, then your students can go over to this potential development level. Okay, so that's why I talk about zone of proximal development level. Um, when you prepare questions, of course, for example, your students are currently knowledge level. Um, so when you bring questions, some knowledge level and then the comprehension level. Comprehension level is a little higher than the knowledge level, right? So to bring up your students to the comprehension level, you need to prepare knowledge level and the comprehension level. So you need to go smoothly from knowledge level to comprehension level. Then your students can bring their knowledge to the comprehension level. Okay, so that way you can guide your students properly. So you need to think about the journal proximal development. Okay, so think when you have a learning cycle, how your students learn, especially we're going to talk about 5 E's next time. And then also the questioning is very important. When you have questions, then your students can have guidance. And when you have questions development, you think about Bloom's taxonomy and of course John of proximal development. So you need to know your students, and to bring them up level, you need to prepare both uh, level questions. Okay, so that's very important for making your classroom full of inquiry.